All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the RNA podcast. Today, our guest was Jake Ellenbogen, and it was a lot of fun, Stephen.
Yeah, man, it was our first podcast in a while. We had moving into our schools and whatnot. So we're happy to get it back started. One of our biggest guests so far, he runs the Rams podcast, a podcasting show, I should say. And he's about to branch off to do some horror podcasting. So pretty neat guest we had on.
Yeah, for sure. I hope you guys enjoy it. All right, Jake, well, welcome on the RNA podcast. We're happy to have you on here. You definitely have yourself a little bit of a following there, to go through some numbers. Downtown with the Rams has 10.3 thousand followers on Instagram. You got your YouTube channel with it's about 6.57 thousand subscribers on YouTube, and then your Twitter page with 10K. I saw, I think it was September 24th, you put something out there that you're going to be a full-time fantasy football reporter, and so how's that gone so far?
Well, I'm looking for another gig. That pretty much that's the realm of it. Full-time or part-time. But right now, I'm self-employed. I mean, I quit my full-time job because I was I was over just doing the call center. I did it for almost 4 years, and while doing everything I've been doing. And so really what I've been doing is just I've been doing YouTube and Downtown Rams entirely full time. So looking to get another gig in there, but it right now I'm making it work. So barely, but it's not the most comfortable living environment, most comfortable lifestyle, but it's one that I'd rather have instead of suffering and working my 9 to 5 that I hate.
Yeah, sure, for sure. Fair enough. So one interesting thing I did want to bring up, we can talk about this is, so you're an LA Rams fan, you have it all over your social media, but I did notice that you're from New York. So where's the ties there? Is it something with St. Louis, or is it with LA, or, how'd this happen?
Great question. It's actually my father kind of raised me to be a fan of all the teams he cared about. So he grew up in Irvine, California, and actually sacrilegious, I know, but my grandfather moved him from California, Southern California, his freshman year of high school, and he moved him to upstate New York. So that's torture. But I wouldn't live. I wouldn't be alive if he didn't do that, because that's how he met my mom. So I'm not hating on that. I'm just like, you don't move a kid from SoCal in high school to upstate New York. If you guys don't know, upstate New York's not SoCal. We'll just say that. But he wasn't really into like hockey or anything like that. So, I picked up my mantle there. I picked the Red Wings because when I was 4, my favorite color was red. True story. And then they trade all my favorite players away. So I jumped on the non-existent bandwagon of the Vegas Golden Knights. But I like all the same teams he likes aside from that, and college. Him and I both like KU. We both have a ton of family in Lawrence, Kansas, obviously. So that's a reason why we like that. And then I like Alabama because I don't know, I just like watching them. And then USC I've liked since Reggie Bush. So aside from that, I like the Yankees, the Lakers, the Rams, and as his teams that he raised me to like. We had to have a New York team, right? Like I live in New York and I barely like New York teams. So the Yankees I've loved my whole life. So that's pretty much that. But I can tell you right now, I'm glad like everyone around here is like a Syracuse fan. Sometimes they're even Patriots fans. I'm like, God, I'm so happy I didn't end up becoming that.
Yeah, you mentioned being a fan of all over the place. I'm right there with you, Jake. So my dad actually grew up in New York, so I'm a New York Yankees fan. But he also,
how about that?
As a kid, was a bandwagon Cowboys fan. So naturally, I am a Cowboys fan as well. But I'm also from Jacksonville. So
okay,
Jags fan, Cowboys fan, a Yankees fan. Now I go to FSU, so Florida State fan. So I'm right there with you. The only team I'm really missing on the bandwagon train is the Los Angeles Lakers.
See, the only problem with Stevens that he chose the worst year to show up to FSU, right, for football. 0-4 start for the first time since Bobby Bowden's first year, I think, at FSU in like 1978 or something like that. It's definitely a tough season to be an FSU fan.
Yes, very much so. But from FSU has produced Cam Akers and Jalen Ramsey for your Rams, Jake. How do you feel?
Yeah, I used to like FSU as well. My aunt who's a huge, she's not a huge Jaguars fan, but she likes the Jaguars. She's a Rams fan as well. She lives in Jacksonville and she went to Florida State. So there's that connection. I loved watching that Jameis team. That was a lot of fun. I like Florida State. It's funny. My aunt actually taught Derrick Henry Yulee High School. So, we that's kind of that like cool little story there. But that's my only real connection to Jacksonville. And I hung out with DJ Chark after the Senior Bowl. Not like, went to the club or anything, but just stayed back and talked to him for like 20 minutes before my like Uber got there. And he was really cool to talk to, and got an interview with him before that. So that's my one connection. Well, and then Gardner Minshew as well, but he's not on the team anymore. So
It's a travesty. Yeah, Gardner Minshew, I used to work out at the gym that he was at, and it was always so funny to come in and see him in there. He's definitely an interesting guy.
Oh yeah, no, I love Gardner Minshew. It's funny because I mean it doesn't make any difference now. But he wanted like the Rams to win the Super Bowl, and they're playing the Patriots. So I think he wanted to get on my good side for whatever reason. I don't know why. I was covering the Senior Bowl, from downtown Rams, and he saw that. He's like, "Oh, I want the Rams to win." But actually, can you cut that out of the podcast? Because like that, he's like, and then they won't pick me, because it's just like he's like, I got an interview, actually, a formal interview with them coming up. I just realized I probably shouldn't have that on the air, and I thought it was funny. But yeah, that guy can play, man. I'm bummed for him that he's in a backup. He's like pigeonholed in that backup role. I think he's a starter in this league personally, but that's just me.
I agree with you there as well. I think he's a starter in at least 10 teams across the league right now. But one thing I wanted to talk to you about is, how did you get into the downtown Rams? How did that start as a hobby of yours and eventually a lifestyle?
Well, to tell you the truth, I mean, I kind of forced myself into it, not really knowing where to turn. So I was going to community college, and I wasn't doing very well. I didn't really care. And I kind of knew this. It was kind of, in a sense, a waste of money, in a sense, not, because, sometimes, even if it's really expensive, a decision, or rather, learning a lesson is very important. And I learned a lesson that just because everyone else was going to college didn't mean I had to. There are other ways. And so, I just had a rough time, honestly. And then I dropped out. And then my cousin kind of, it was like rock bottom for me. And not going to lie, I was up till like 6 a.m. playing Call of Duty every night. And then I would wake up at like 3 p.m. And my cousin one day just was like, dude, you got to get your crap together. Like, this is ridiculous. And it kind of clicked. And he's like, the Rams so well, sports. The fact you're not doing something in that realm, you're wasting your talents. And like, I listened to him, and then sure enough, it was kind of his idea to force me to push out that downtown Rams brand. And, got writing, did a bunch of fan posts on Turf Show Times, on SB Nation. One of my mock drafts was like the third. It was something crazy. And this is how I got like noticed, because it was like my third. And keep in mind, I wasn't writing for Turf Show Times. I was writing in that fan post section. It's like a forum. And I wrote my mock draft. It was just a first round. And it was right after, I think, the Carson Wentz trade. And it was the third most viewed post in the entire SB Nation page, and that includes actual articles on SB Nation. And that was when like Rams Wire, USA Today, came to me, and they're like, hey, we want you to write for us. And they're like, well, we know you're trying to get downtown Rams off the ground, but right now you don't have a website. You could come write for us. And then that. So I wrote for Rams Wire, and then basically I wrote for Rams Wire for about 2 months, and then just kind of was like, I really want to do my own thing. Ever since I've started, I've been doing downtown Rams. I started it on, a really not so great, in my opinion, platform that I don't recommend for anybody to use, which is Wix.com. But, I used that, and I didn't feel like the traffic was that great, but I mean, it ended up working out well. In our first year, we had 100,000 views on the site. And then shortly after, I just really was like, this talking thing, I think I could do, especially like no video. Cause like, I don't know, with video, it took me a while to get like real confidence and everything. Plus I had a Michael Strahan gap in my teeth, which I no longer have. So that was a big turn off for me. But over time I got more confidence in that. And then I started asking just players that I liked on film to come on. And like, I mean, I asked all sorts of guys, but one of the big names that came on to my show that was non-existent, I just assumed I said, come on my podcast. I didn't have a podcast yet. And I remember just recording it on the worst call recorder app on my iPhone. It just is awful quality. I had George Kittle, who at the time was, in my opinion, the most underrated tight end in the draft, the best tight end in the draft, did everything you want him to do, but was held back because of the quarterback situation with CJ Beathard at Iowa. So I was like, I want to give this guy, if I have any sort of, fan base or anything, I'd love to just kind of spread this guy's name everywhere, because I feel like he shouldn't be going in the late, 7th round. He should be going in the 1st round. He is that good. So I had him on, and that was great. And that kind of started the podcast, because then, my co-host and I, Blake Grisak, who now just runs downtownrams.com as far as the writing aspect exclusively, we started getting that confidence to really just reach out to anybody. So we started off the voice of the Rams. JB Long was our first guest. And then, we had Dick Vermeil on, and just had all sorts of people. So, I think the biggest thing, because this is a long story, I'm not going to go fully into, otherwise it would take up all of your podcasts. But the biggest thing, I think, if you're trying to get your brand off the ground, is don't be afraid of people saying no. You don't know the answer until you ask. And sometimes getting ignored is the answer, but that's okay. Getting ignored is fine. It's not harmful. I think that's the thing. As soon as we realize as content creators early on in our life cycle, so to speak, that you can go up to anybody and, if they say no, it's not an actual dagger in the heart. Like, then you're 10 foot tall and bulletproof, or whatever they want to call it, because essentially you have the power now. We are so blessed to be in this type of era of sports content creation. First off, they're only hiring players, to be analysts now. You're not going to see your Colin Cowherds anymore. Really, that's the only area of where, you and I, if we're not like a superstar athlete and played in the NFL, we have a shot. It would be that Colin Cowherd type of talking head show. However, there used to be guys like Scott Van Pelt, who is still around, yes, but like there used to be just those guys on ESPN. And now they're only hiring, former players. And so I think because of that, I think people have started to turn away a little bit. They like those guys. They like the Stuart Scotts. They like people that make the name for themselves. And so I think that gives us an opportunity in the podcast, full on content creation realm, whether it be writing, whether it be podcasting, whether it be doing video, because now, I didn't realize it, but when I started YouTube, I looked at the analytics early on as to now, and early on it was not bad, but now it's like people are watching me as their show. Oh, I just got back from work. Let's see if Jake put out a video. That'll be my TV show for tonight. Then I'm going to go to bed. You know how I know this? Because I see in the analytics where people are watching. It's not just their iPhone anymore. It's not just their Android device. It's not just their iPad. They're watching it on Roku TVs, so it's like they have their own, it's like they've set up their own show. People are canceling cable and all of that. And so I think just the fact is, from multiple standpoints, if you're trying to get into content creation in that regard, it is beautiful because you're getting yourself out there. There's just so much opportunity as far as who can find you. But on top of it, there's a lot of opportunity to find other people and interact with them. And you could just tweet at somebody on Twitter, get lucky enough to get a response back, and boom, you have a guest, So it's a lot easier for us than it was back then. And we just got to take advantage of it. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, Jake, there's a lot of things that you just said that I really like. The first one that I want to talk about is how you mentioned, something that we've realized during this podcast. And we've also, the last guest we had on was a young kid that's also aspiring to be in sports media. And we've learned on our own and through talking to other people that are, trying to be in sports media, that sometimes reaching out is going to get you what you want. And people are too scared to reach out. And that's why they don't end up doing it. And, this kid, he was 12, 13 years old, and he reached out to Mac Jones, and Mac Jones came on and had an interview with him. And he was
awesome.
Yeah. And it's the same thing that we've had experiences with, when we'll, reach out to an athlete or a musician that we really want to have on our podcast. And, a lot of people would be like, oh, I'm not really sure. I don't want to reach out to them. I don't think they're going to say yes anyways. It's like, you know what? You're never going to know if you don't ask. So you might as well try.
100%.
So
Oh, sorry. Go
ahead.
ahead.
No, yeah,
Well,
no, yeah, you go ahead.
okay. So yeah, the craziest for the Rams podcast anyway, the craziest interview we did, a guy by the name of, I mean, I'm sure you've heard of him before, Mikal Bridges, the basketball player for the Suns. He's a big Rams fan. So we had him on. It was totally against my KU religion because they had just knocked KU out of out of the tournament. And my co-host was a Villanova fan, so he was like over the moon about it. But we had him on, and that was great. It's funny. We had him on. We've had guests like say, Keith Cosrow, I want to say his name is. He was the guy that was in charge of Hard Knocks and All or Nothing, like the producer. So yeah, I mean, I've had all sorts of different type of guests that may not like the Madden, one of the Madden ratings guys, Andre Weingarten. I had him on as well. You just, I think the thing is, you just can't confine yourself to one area. I think people like those crazy interviews where you're like, wait, who is this? And why are they out here? Wow, I'm enjoying this. I reached out to Stephen Amell, who's a huge Rams fan. I mean, we'll see if I hear back from him, but if I don't, I'm not going to cry about it. I'm just going to move on to the next, So that's really the biggest thing. I mean, I'm starting you guys said like you're into music and stuff. I actually just dropped the logo today with Jarrett Bailey. I don't know if you know who he is. But Jarrett Bailey and I are going to be doing a horror movie podcast called The Devil's Eyes. And, one of our big things that we want to do is, we want to get like former actors from, like Kane Hodder, he played, Jason in, Friday the 13th. But one of the big things there, since you're a music guy, I don't know if you know who this band is, but Ice Nine Kills, if you know them, the lead singer of Ice Nine Kills is Spencer Charnas, and they have actually been doing this whole concept of all like the last 3 records have been horror based. So while they were just a regular metalcore band, they have really created their own thing that's original, in that they're creating music based on horror movies that no one else is doing. So that's that's been a thing of mine that I've wanted to do, for that show. And I'm hoping I can get him on. But it just kind of goes to show you, you don't need to put yourself confined in this one area. You can kind of broaden out. And if you ever find celebrities that may not know football, but, hey, they're a fan of whatever team you're doing, or they like football or whatever, you get them on, because you never know. It's all about it. And this is a big thing here in networking. It's not about who you know. It's about who knows you. It doesn't matter who you know, because if you met a guy, like I've actually met Jerry Jones. I've talked to him twice at the Senior Bowl. If Jerry Jones doesn't know me, that doesn't really matter, right? Because if I'm just like, oh yeah, I know Jerry Jones, yeah, but if Jerry Jones saw me, and like this is how I know, because the first time I saw him, I met him. The second time, he recognized me. If I were to see him a third time and he didn't recognize me, didn't know who I was, that's kind of a pointless thing, because nothing can come from that relationship, So that's the thing that I want to encourage, especially you guys. If you're starting a podcast, what have you, be sure that the other person, you're nice enough and you bring enough to the table where the other person is like, oh yeah, I want to know this person, and like, because you'd be surprised. A lot of these guys are really down to earth, and the ones that aren't, just you find out and you don't gravitate towards them. It's that simple.
Yeah,
Sure.
I really enjoy that. A lot of the down to earth people that you have on the podcast, they're pretty familiar with the background, having to work for what they got, whether it be an athlete, musician, whatever. They had to start rock bottom too. A lot of these people aren't just gifted, at a top platform and this big volley. I think they understand from our aspect that, we're trying to grow and we're trying to branch off and do different things. I think they totally understand. And I agree, like reaching out to people and not holding yourself in one lane, you can meet so many people, and 10, 15 years down the road, you never know who those people could be or the influence they can have on your life. So
100%.
I think it's really cool, not only to do these, but to look back and see what they were. Like you said about George Kittle before he got drafted.
Yeah.
He's one of the best tight ends in the NFL right now, hands down. Everybody has a fantasy team. And I mean, you believed in him. If George Kittle sees that and knows that, I mean, not only is that awesome for him, but it's awesome for you too, just to build that connection and watch it grow throughout the years.
Exactly. No, I 100% agree with you. I think that's the big thing there. So and really, I mean, I think the hardest thing is when you meet someone amazing, just keep in touch with them. Even if you're texting them every other year or something like that, at least they know that, okay, this person didn't just use me to come on their show. Like, I
Mhm.
still text John Franklin Myers of the Jets. I still text Blake Cashman from the Jets. I still text Kyle Sloter, who's now with the Raiders. Like, those are people that I feel like, we really vibed with. I really vibed with when I was, had them on the show. And so I want to have that level of communication. I had Cashman on earlier in the offseason. We talked about his thoughts on the whole Sam Darnold trade and everything. They all love Sam. So, I love that type of insight I can give as long as, they're willing to give it. I'm not one of those people that only has a relationship with a football player to try to get, deets, right? Because the thing is, I can report news. I have sources. I don't care to, because the thing is, it's such a overwhelming thing when you really look at this league and how things change on a dime and how trades fall through like all the time. I'm just over putting myself into that like crosshair. I just want to build myself as far as, because what I know I can offer as an analyst and, a personality and somebody that will entertain you instead of just, being a reporter. Like, I admire the hell out of Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport and what they do. I don't want to be Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport because of what they do. It's just not it's not my goal. I let those people do their thing. And then the next people that come up, they'll have the passion to do that. I don't have the passion to cover as far as like news and breaking news and transactions and things. I don't have the passion to cover that the way I do covering a game, like previewing a game, talking about different takes, whether a guy that I think is going to be the MVP or a guy that could be rookie of the year or the draft or something like that. And that's always going to be me. I've been finding myself over the years, but I'm kind of molding myself into what I want to do. And I know what I want to do now. I mean, I obviously want to cover the Rams since the majority of my fan base, very, very loyal Rams fans. But also, trying to break into the fantasy football realm since I know the league like very well. And then I love my interests in, MCU and horror. And so I started the horror podcast and I still do MCU, coverage on the YouTube. So that's kind of the thing for me is when people are like, what are you? Are you an analyst? Are you, a sports insider? Like, I don't want to be an insider. I don't, but I like just doing what I'm doing. And I'm sure you guys kind of feel the same way when you're in your realm of, expertise. It feels way more comfortable. So, you just have to find what that is. And as long as you found it, you're good.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Hey, Jake, so you've talked about horror a couple times here. So this is a perfect segue because in my notes
Yes.
I went through your Twitter bio and you mentioned that you're a fanatic for horror films.
Love
Two
it.
questions I have for you, right?
Mm.
The first one is if you could name a top 5 list of horror films, and the second one is have you been to Hollywood Horror Nights at Universal?
I have not. I just missed it. And it's funny because, what was it? I went to, I'm forgetting the name of the studios, WB, Warner Brothers. There we go. I went to Warner Brothers. I saw like the It House and everything, like really cool stuff, right? The backlot tour is incredible. But they had a horror thing I heard is even like better than Hollywood Horror Nights. And I didn't get to do that either just because I had such limited time in LA. But no, I want to do that someday for sure. And I want to do those things, the pop-up stuff to promote movies. Like I wanted to do the Candyman thing so badly, but it's like I'm not going to fly to Chicago just to do that thing where you go in the Candyman room, you say Candyman, have the animatronic Candyman jump out at you. I mean, it would be cool, but you're not. It's not one of those things like where you'll fly out there, you'll spend an hour doing that, and you're done, right? So it's tough because there's just not really much that comes around here. You have to kind of go there. So I definitely want to do that at some point. As far as the top 5, I would say the new It. Not the second one, but chapter 1, just I think is incredible. Very rarely is a newer movie, a newer rendition of a movie better than the old, in my opinion, when it comes to horror. I think all the time with other genres, but horror, for whatever reason, the old stuff just it works. Like even as tacky as it feels, sometimes, it's still going to work out. It's still going to be my favorite. So I'd say it. I would say how the original Halloween, loved it. I'd say the Halloween from Blumhouse not last year, but a few years ago, loved that. I have one rule: Blumhouse doesn't come out with anything bad. You should go watch them. But those are my three, and then I say the other two. I'd probably say the '74 version of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And then I'd probably say either Sinister or Cabin in the Woods, because the thing that's cool about Cabin in the Woods is that it really, if you really look at it in this way, it canonizes horror films in every reason. All of the little things that they do with, the seduction and all of that and all those movies, and the final girl, how it's all like scripted almost. They kind of cover that in that movie, and it is crazy. And it's Chris Hemsworth. He actually filmed that. They finished filming before he became Thor. They released it after because of production delays. But no, it's a great movie if you haven't seen Cabin in the Woods. But I would say the one that's super underrated in my opinion is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because it gets such a bad reputation because it's called the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You're thinking, okay, there's probably 100 body count in this one. It's probably super gory. It's really not. And, I like gore, if it makes sense. If they're just going to put it in, it's CGI. First off, CGI gore sucks. Okay. Like you can't make CGI gore look good. It has to be practical. That's the first thing. The second, I like horror movies based on the story. So if it doesn't have a story worth watching, or if it isn't exhilarating for me, I probably don't like it that much. I'll watch it. I mean, I've seen Chopping Mall. Don't watch that if you don't like low budget 80s horror films. It's literally about how it sounds. It's a shopping mall guarded by robots, and they chop people up. But like that's the type of crap that's on there. So I find this genre is the most hit or miss you'll ever find. You'll either love it or you'll hate it. So I think the biggest thing for me is a story, and the 5 that I mentioned have great stories. They have, good amounts of gore, not super crazy. Texas Chainsaw doesn't have really any gore, so to speak. Which is why I feel like people need to stop being like, oh, it's so gross, I'm not going to watch it. I'm like, have you seen at least 5 minutes of it? No? Okay, then go watch it. Like the '74 film is great. But I also, learning about this genre, and I highly recommend, if you like horror, if you like it as much as I do, or even not as much as I do, go check out James A. Janice's Dead Meat channel on YouTube. And if you like metalcore and mixed with horror, check out Ice Nine Kills, because those are the two most influential things to me with this genre. It's why I have a new appreciation for it. It's why over the last 5 years, my love for it has just gone through the roof, because I always liked it. I mean, I've been watching horror films since I was 4. Whether that's acceptable or not, I don't know, nor do I care. But I have been watching them since I was 4. So, I just love them, and I think the exhilaration, right? If I'm not sitting there concerned about the character, you didn't make the character good enough. And that's why like Friday the 13th to me, I find very overrated, because Jason's cool with the hockey mask, but let's call it like they just use the characters as meat bags. Like it's entirely just Jason. Who's Jason gonna murder? You can't get behind any of the other kids or anything, because you don't remember their names. They're boring and they're dumb. So it's like when you do the check mark of the worst characters to root for in a horror movie, there you go. That's all of them. So it's not for everybody is that the case, but I would say I really like, like Laurie Strode and Halloween. You can root for Laurie Strode. You can also root for Michael Myers. Like it's a good movie. It's a good idea. But when it comes to Friday the 13th, I can't remember a single. All I remember is that Kevin Bacon as a kid is in the first one, and he has like one of the craziest death scenes you'll ever see. But that's about it.
I think you might be the first person I know that is in the horror lane, because you see people doing sports podcasts, you see people doing talk shows, whatever. You don't hear a lot of people doing horror podcasts. So I think that'll be.
Well, we just started. We haven't even done a first episode, but no, I hear you, man.
Too, though, with Halloween right around the corner, it's a good time to start.
Yeah, good time to start it up. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Speaking of October, big Yankees fan.
Yes.
Steven is also a Yankees fan. I personally am a Red Sox fan. So
Okay.
real tight race we got going on here.
Yeah.
I will say, unfortunately, the Red Sox did drop 2 to 3 to the Orioles this week, but we're still in the wild card race right now. Uh, how you feeling with the Yankees? Head down to Tampa. They're playing the Rays. So
Yeah,
what do you got? What are we thinking? How's October going to go for them?
Well, I think they're going to come away with the number one seed in the wild card. The problem is I hate the wild card. I hate the one game playoff. I just don't think it works in baseball at all. It's not the best team that wins. It's the best team that day that wins. So,
And the
I mean,
best
I
pitcher
can't.
most times too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I can't just sit here, knowing what Aaron Boone, how he managed games, how he micromanages games and all of that, and just the analytics and all that, which I don't agree with. I can't sit here and confidently say the Yankees are going to the next round of the playoffs. I just can't. Personally, I mean, I'll say that they win the first game, but I'm not 100% convinced. I don't think they're that great, to be honest with you. They're way too streaky. And to me, they're way too built on the home run. And I was not a fan of going out and getting Joey Gallo. I thought that was a waste of resources as somebody that bats 200. And, if your argument is, well, batting average doesn't matter anymore, I can't help you there. So, I like Rizzo. I thought Rizzo was a good ad. I've always liked Rizzo. He's been through a lot. I believe he actually beat cancer.
He did.
They
Yeah.
have two guys on their team that beat cancer, him and Tyon. But I just think this team, it's a bunch of big names. They're literally the Cleveland Browns. Like everyone just freaked out when the Cleveland Browns got Malik Jackson and Jadeveon Clowney. But it's like, what have you done for me lately? And that's kind of the issue I have with the Yankees. Although Stanton's playing well, Judge is one of the best players in baseball. I think they were probably expecting more. I was definitely expecting more out of Gleyber Torres, but it's definitely changed things. Sanchez obviously is there, but I can't get behind this team winning the World Series. Personally, I think San Francisco is going to win it. I think they're the best built team. I love the way they built their team really from the ground up and then made one trade for Chris Bryant to kind of shore up the roster. They lost Brandon Belt probably for the year with a broken thumb, which really sucks, but I think they're still good enough. And, I'll say also the NL teams have a little bit of an advantage because they play in the bigger ballparks all year round. Obviously, without the DH and everything, I've always kind of gravitated towards NL is better prepared. And I don't think the AL is, significantly better this year like years past. So I'm going to go with the San Francisco Giants to win it all. But if the Yankees do make it to say the ALCS or the World Series, that is a winning season. And I think people need to really, change their expectations about the Yankees because they're just not they're not an elite team. They're just not. And so, when people say, well, we had a bunch of opportunity to win these games. Yeah, but the Yankees also led the league in wins in one score games. So this idea that we could have won that game. Yeah, I mean, the other teams could have won all those games, and
Yeah.
then you would have missed the playoffs. So I just feel like in baseball, especially, you play 162 games. Don't complain. Don't whine. Don't make excuses. Your record is absolutely your record. It's not football. It's not like the NFL where you play 16, 17 games now. And, you're looking at the Kansas City Chiefs who are now, 1-2. They could be 0-3 or 3-0. It's a little different. And that's changed on, the course of maybe 2 to 3 plays in a game. No, you played 162 games. Your record is what you are. And I'm so over the whole, well, the Yankees had an opportunity. No, stop it. I'm a Yankee fan. Just call it like it is. They're not going to win the division. That's out of the question. Now we'll see if the Rays want to ruin their life, with that and give them a road game in a 1-game series, or, if they're going to lay down and let the Yankees beat them. Personally, I think the Rays have no dog in the fight, but as long as it's on the schedule, they're going to play, they're going to play hard, and the Rays right now are probably the favorite in the AL. So, it'll be interesting for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely tough, us being fans of ALS team or AL East teams
Yeah.
to constantly watch us spend money in the offseason and the Rays do absolutely nothing and just beat our brains in every single season. Like, it's ridiculous. I mean, and even the years that the Rays aren't as good, they still find their spot in the wild card, and they still have typically good seasons every single year, and they're spending no money at all. And I mean, the Red Sox obviously spend a good amount of money, but the Yankees even more so. They just got a star-studded lineup, and it's just we watch our teams lose every single year to the Rays, who just aren't spending money. They got was it Kevin Kiermaier might be the biggest name in their lineup. I think that's about it. And
Yeah.
it's ridiculous, but
I
it's
think
how baseball is sometimes.
the Blue Jays and the Rays in the next 5 years, I think they're going to be the top dogs in the AL East, hands down. I mean, Blue Jays just have so much young talent. They're nowhere close to peaking right now, and I feel like the Yankees are past their peak as a team as well as Yankees fans. So the Yankees can never stay healthy. You know, Severino obviously just got back, but
Yeah.
that'll be for.
Yeah, no, I mean you're right, and plus I don't think their manager their manager isn't good. You know, he just reads a piece of paper. You know, hey, this is what the lineup is today. He offers, he's a yes man. He offers no particular competitive advantage like a Girardi or somebody like that. I mean, I didn't realize how good Girardi was until Boone came to the Yankees. I mean, Girardi is night and day a better. As far as game feel in the moment, he is so much better as a manager. I thought personally that it was a disgrace that they didn't reach out to Mattingly and try to bring him back. But what do I know, right? I don't think analytics in baseball work. Personally, I think it's destroying the sport. So a lot of people love them and they've been obsessed with them and they've adapted to them and adopted them as like their brother. So I guess I don't know anything in that regard.
Yeah, for sure. We've had people on too that have said something similar. We had a guest a while back. He played baseball at Jackson University, and he also played up in the Cape Cod League. And he was saying, he was like, analytics is one thing, but there's just some people who have a feel for the game of baseball, and those people who have the feel for the game of baseball are just so much better than the managers that don't, because at the end of the day, analytics aren't going to tell you who to put in or who give the ball in the ninth inning of, a playoff game. And that's something that people who have a feel for the game, have an advantage over. And like you said, I'm not sure if Aaron Boone is that guy, but.
All right, Jake, it's been awesome having you on, man. We appreciate it. I think we're going to wrap up here. We appreciate everything you said on the podcast, giving us advice, talking about how you got into podcasting and whatnot. Thank you again.
And we wish you luck in the future as well.
Yeah, thank you guys. If you guys ever need a guest, I don't charge, as you guys know. But I'd love to come on, and you ever need to talk, baseball, basketball, hockey, football. I mean, football may be my expertise, but I know a thing or two about the other sports as well. Or horror, horror or MCU. Then I'm your guy. So really do appreciate you guys having me, and best of luck, with the podcast. Keep doing it. That's the best advice you can give somebody is just keep doing what they're doing when they're succeeding, when they're going out there, even when they're not succeeding. If you find yourself, 0 subscribers on YouTube, 0 views, whatever, just get 1% better every day and you'll change that, and that's the thing. You read a lot, you do what you guys did, ask people that, are doing well. I wouldn't say I've made it, but ask people that are doing well or in the direction that they want to be in, and find out, pick their brain, find out what makes them work, find out what makes them tick, and then kind of just create your own based on that. Just kind of create your own your process. And I think that's a big thing. It's why I'm actually releasing a content creator course October 25th. That'll have basically a guide to social media and how you can grow your Twitter. Mine at one point, it was like, it was not big, right? I've been doing Downtown Rams Twitter for a while and kind of neglected my personal, but now my personal is ahead of Downtown Rams Twitter and starting to really grow. So that's been a big focal point of mine, is growing on Twitter. It's probably the least likely for people to click on links as opposed to Facebook. But, those people are always, sharing it around and getting your name out there. And it's basically the modern day newspaper. So highly recommend, growing there. But on top of that, I have guides on how to, record a video, my process I use, different things like, setting up thumbnails to make things look, good, eye catching, all of that. And then just my streaming setup and how you can stream. And like everyone just, it's funny. There's people that are like, oh, I always wanted to stream, but like, I just don't feel like I'm good enough. It's like, there's no such thing. You got to start from the bottom. I was streaming, with the worst backdrop ever. Now I have this like brick backdrop thing that I shine 2 LEDs on. But like, I used to have this fake wood I mean, I'm in my basement. So like I used to have this fake wood paneling that I'd be behind, and the light would just bounce right off it. It would go right into the picture, and it was awful. So like eventually over time, I just learned that, hey, don't use that really bad panel backdrop and change your approach. That's my biggest thing is like you're gonna find you can't just start one day and be excellent. You're gonna look back on yourself when you first start and be like, so glad I got better, but I mean, you don't know until you know. So I think for people that are like, oh, I wish I could stream, or oh, I wish I could record a video, you can, start from the bottom, so to speak, and work your way up.
I think that's awesome advice, and it could pertain to not only YouTube but a lot of different areas as well.
100%.
Whatever you have a passion for, social media and technology nowadays, just the ability to get that out there wherever.
Like I said, we're so lucky with all the technology we got. Just think about 20 years ago, somebody trying to do what we're doing. It wasn't as easy, not even close. So, we'd be wasting our opportunities if we weren't taking advantage of it. So if you're sitting there and you're like, I want to change my life, because either you just want to have a fun podcast with your friends, it sounds like you're at a bar, or you want to try and make a business out of it, you can do both. I mean, it's entirely possible. You just have to commit to it, and you have to be ready to see 0 views, 20 views, 40 views. Eventually you'll get to the point where I'm at, and I'm nowhere near where I want to be, but I feel like I put out a video, as long as it's Rams related, it's going to get about 1,000 to 2,000 views each time, which is good. You want to have that consistency. So just, be comfortable being uncomfortable. It is a very uncomfortable experience putting yourself out there. That's what my grandfather always told me, be comfortable being uncomfortable. Don't confine yourself to one space, and just, put yourself out there. You never know. Sometimes, it catches the eye of somebody, and then all of a sudden you may have a full-time job that you never even expected, or something like that. You never know. So, got to try first before you admit failure.
For sure, Jake. And thanks again for having us on. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up here, but we just appreciate you coming on and joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, guys.